Commander Elias Mercer adjusted the collar of his flight jacket as the shuttle hummed softly around the edge of the Andromeda expanse. Outside the viewport, the stars stretched endlessly, a glittering sea of light. Even after years in space, Elias never grew tired of the view. Every star was a story, a reminder that humanity was small but daring, always reaching for the unknown. The mission this time was different. The United Earth Council had chosen him to represent humanity in its first formal contact with the Zelari. The Zelari were a species cloaked in mystery. Known for their telepathy and for eyes that glimmered with colors beyond human perception, they lived in harmony with their environment in ways humans only dreamed of. Few had ever seen them up close, and fewer still had survived diplomatic encounters without misunderstandings. Elias took a deep breath. He had studied their culture extensively. The Zelari placed tremendous value on honesty, patience, and the ability to feel without deceit. Humans, by contrast, were often impulsive, driven by emotions and curiosity, sometimes carelessly so. He hoped his sincerity would bridge the gap. The shuttle shuddered as it passed through the outer perimeter of Zelari space. Energy fields shimmered in the void, and strange bioluminescent signals danced in the darkness like living fireworks. Elias watched them carefully, trying to read the pattern. It was beautiful, almost hypnotic, but also slightly intimidating. He knew that the Zelari were observing him as carefully as he observed them. "Approaching the landing zone," the shuttle pilot announced. His voice was steady but tinged with a hint of nervousness. It wasn't just any pilot. It was Captain Lyra Chen, one of the finest navigators in the fleet. Elias nodded, grateful for her calm presence. The shuttle landed with almost no sound, gliding onto a platform suspended above a vast valley. The valley was filled with towering crystalline trees, their surfaces glowing softly with internal light. Streams of liquid reflected the multicolored glow, creating an effect that made the entire landscape look like a painting in motion. Elias had read about the beauty of Zelari cities, but seeing it firsthand was different. It took his breath away. They were greeted by a group of Zelari emissaries. They moved with grace that seemed almost unreal. Their bodies were lithe, their limbs long, and their skin had a soft iridescence. But it was their eyes that stopped Elias mid-step. They were not just windows to the soul. They were storms of color, constantly shifting, reflecting light in ways humans could barely comprehend. He felt a strange pull, a combination of awe and curiosity, almost like looking directly into the heart of the universe. One of them stepped forward. Her movements were careful, deliberate, yet completely natural. She paused a few steps from Elias and tilted her head slightly, observing him with quiet intensity. "I am Lyra," she said, her voice melodic but strange, not exactly audible in the normal sense. Elias realized then that he was hearing a direct translation into his mind. Telepathy, he had expected it, but the sensation was still unnerving. "I am Commander Elias Mercer," he replied. He kept his voice calm, steady, even though his heart raced. "I am here to represent humanity." Lyra's eyes shimmered again. He could almost see the thought patterns behind them: curiosity, caution, recognition of intent. Elias remembered his training: never make sudden movements, never show fear, and above all, be honest. Humans could be deceptive, but he was not here to manipulate or impress. He simply wanted to understand and connect. The emissaries led him through the city. Each structure seemed to be grown rather than built, flowing naturally from the ground as if it had always been there. Walls pulsed faintly with energy, reacting to their presence. As they walked, Elias noticed the Zelari watching him closely, subtle movements that suggested calculation, observation, and evaluation. Finally, he was led to a garden, separate from the main city. It was quiet here, almost sacred, filled with bioluminescent flowers that seemed to hum with their own energy. Pools of liquid reflected the strange sky above, creating the illusion that the stars themselves had descended to meet him. Lyra stepped forward, stopping near a flowering tree whose petals shimmered like liquid silver. Elias took a deep breath. He had waited for this moment, but now that he was here, words felt insufficient. He remembered the advice his mentor had given him. Sometimes the simplest words carry the most meaning. "You have beautiful eyes," he said without hesitation. For a moment, Lyra froze. Her eyes widened slightly, the colors swirling faster as if startled by the statement. She had encountered countless humans, but never one who expressed admiration without ulterior motive. She was left speechless, not because of disbelief, but because of the sincerity behind his words. Elias noticed the subtle shift in her posture. There was no immediate response, only a pause filled with the gentle hum of the garden. He felt his own pulse quicken, not from fear, but from the strange thrill of reaching across an impossible boundary and being understood. Then, slowly, Lyra inclined her head. The gesture was small, almost imperceptible, but it carried weight. In that moment, an unspoken connection was made. Humans and Zelari could be vastly different, but here, in the quiet of a glowing garden, understanding had begun. Over the next few hours, they walked together among the luminous trees, talking through the telepathic link. Elias shared stories of Earth, its oceans, forests, mountains, and the way humans laughed and celebrated. Lyra listened, fascinated by the variety of life and the resilience of humanity. In return, she shared glimpses of Zelari culture, their reverence for the natural world, their philosophy of balance, their methods of communication through light, color, and thought. It was not a conventional conversation. Words were supplemented with images, emotions, and ideas that transcended language. Elias felt a profound sense of awe. He realized that the Zelari did not simply speak, they revealed. And to be revealed to in return was a rare gift. As night fell, the garden transformed. The bioluminescent plants glowed brighter, reflecting in the pools like countless stars mirrored on the ground. Elias and Lyra paused at the edge of a small waterfall, the liquid cascading in iridescent streams. "Your species, humans," Lyra said finally, her voice carrying both curiosity and cautious admiration. "You feel so deeply, even for something as small as a simple compliment." Elias smiled. "Sometimes the simplest things are the most honest." "And honesty is what matters, isn't it?" Lyra's eyes flickered, shades of green and blue blending into violet. It was her way of processing, thinking, feeling. For the first time, Elias sensed a warmth that was almost like trust forming between them. It was subtle but undeniable. As they returned to the main hall, Elias reflected on the day. He had completed the formal part of his mission. Greetings had been exchanged, protocols observed. But more importantly, he had begun something intangible, something far more valuable than diplomacy. A human had connected with a Zelari on a level deeper than words, and in doing so, he had taken the first step toward bridging an entire galaxy of differences. That night, as he rested in his quarters, Elias replayed the moment in the garden over and over. Her eyes, the way they had shifted, the silent communication, the subtle acknowledgement of his words. It was a reminder that even in a universe filled with advanced technology, sprawling civilizations, and endless dangers, the power of human sincerity was something rare and extraordinary. Lyra, in her own way, was doing the same. Alone in her observation chamber, she thought of the human who had spoken to her not as a diplomat or a soldier, but as another being capable of wonder and kindness. The memory of his words resonated within her, a ripple in her mind that she could not easily ignore. By the time the first light of the Zelari dawn touched the crystalline city, an invisible bridge had been built. It was fragile, yes, and based only on a moment of honesty, but it was real. Elias had no idea what the future would hold, whether humans and Zelari would clash, cooperate, or drift apart. But he knew that the first step had been taken. And sometimes, he realized, a single phrase, spoken sincerely, could change the course of everything. The shuttle outside his quarters waited to bring him to further meetings, negotiations, and formalities. But Elias lingered a moment longer, gazing at the alien city through the transparent walls, thinking of the luminous garden, the cascading lights, and the Zelari woman whose eyes had stopped his heart and opened his mind. In a universe of endless stars, strange worlds, and alien minds, a simple truth had become clear. Humanity's greatest strength was not its technology, nor its weapons, nor its knowledge, but its capacity for empathy, honesty, and connection. And for Elias Mercer, that truth had never been clearer than when he had looked into Lyra's eyes and told her the truth he felt, the truth that she was beautiful in a way that went far beyond mere appearance. And for the first time, he felt that humans were not merely visitors to the galaxy. They could be a part of it in ways that mattered, ways that could shape the future. The following morning, the crystalline city of the Zelari glimmered under twin suns that rose slowly over jagged peaks in the distance. Commander Elias Mercer stood on the observation balcony of the delegation center, taking in the panoramic view. The city beneath him pulsed with life. Bioluminescent spires rose like stalagmites of light. Rivers of iridescent liquid meandered through the streets, and Zelari citizens floated or glided along transparent pathways with a grace that humans could only envy. Elias had learned something vital the day before. While diplomacy could secure agreements, genuine understanding was built through trust and small gestures. His mind lingered on Lyara, the Zelari woman whose eyes had stunned him with their strange, shifting beauty. He wondered if she thought of him as much as he thought of her. In a way, he hoped she did, though he knew better than to expect overt emotion from a species so reserved. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. His communicator blinked. Lyara was requesting a private session in the garden. He hesitated for a brief second, aware that spending too much time alone with an alien emissary could be misinterpreted, but curiosity and an inexplicable sense of connection pushed him forward. When he entered the garden, Lyara was wading at the edge of a small pond that reflected the stars above. The water shimmered with her iridescent light as she moved closer, eyes flickering between hues of green and violet. "You returned," she said in the telepathic link, though her voice was calm and measured. "Yes," Elias replied. "I wanted to learn more about you, about your people, and maybe about how you see the universe." Lyara paused, and for a moment she said nothing. Then images began to flow into Elias' mind. Forests that glowed with their own energy, crystal formations that hummed like strings of a musical instrument, creatures that seemed born from light itself. It was not just a vision, it was a feeling, an emotion carried through images. Elias felt wonder, awe, and an unfamiliar serenity as if the Zelari way of life were breathing through him. "It is not easy for us," Lyara finally said, "to share these things with outsiders. Humans are impulsive. Often your intentions are hidden even from yourselves." Elias nodded. "I know we are flawed, but sometimes honesty can make up for a lot. Yesterday, I told you the truth. I admired your eyes. I meant it." Her eyes shifted again, deep blue flickering into violet. That mattered. The simplicity of her words struck him. It wasn't a formal acknowledgement nor praise, it was recognition. Recognition of a human trait she found worthy. Elias realized that sometimes the smallest gestures could resonate more than any grand speech or treaty. Over the next several hours, they walked through the garden. The air was fragrant with bioluminescent flora, and every step seemed to echo in the quiet space. Elias shared stories of his childhood on Earth, of oceans so vast they seemed endless, and mountains that climbed into the clouds. He spoke of laughter, of small victories, and even of human failures, unafraid of showing vulnerability. Lyara listened, not just with her mind, but with her being. She responded in images and feelings, showing him visions of her people's culture. How Zelari children learned to harmonize with light and sound. How families coexisted with nature rather than dominating it. How life was celebrated not in accumulation but in balance. Elias found himself captivated. The Zelari were unlike anything humans had imagined. And yet he felt a kinship, a strange resonance that made the distance between species seem smaller than it should be. Days passed in a rhythm of cautious cooperation. Elias attended formal sessions with the Zelari Council, negotiating trade routes, communication protocols, and cultural exchanges. He was meticulous, careful not to overstep, yet always sincere. During breaks, he found moments to return to Lyara, who seemed equally drawn to him, though she never let it appear in the obvious ways humans expected. One afternoon, the two of them explored a crystalline canyon outside the city. The walls shimmered with embedded lights, and streams of liquid reflected the twin suns in fragmented patterns. They walked in silence at first, each absorbing the alien beauty in their own way. Then Elias spoke. "Do you ever wonder about humans, about what drives us?" Lyara tilted her head and her eyes shifted from green to gold. "We observe, you are unpredictable, you create and destroy with the same hands, yet some of you are capable of remarkable compassion." Elias smiled. "I like to believe that's true. And I want to be one of those humans." She studied him for a long moment. There was no mockery, no judgment, only consideration. Finally, she said, "Perhaps you are." It was not a declaration of love, not yet, but it was closer than anything she had ever expressed to a human. Elias felt a thrill of hope mixed with the gravity of the moment. He knew the galaxy was vast and indifferent, yet here, in this canyon, they had created a small world of their own. One evening, after formal sessions had concluded, a sudden alarm rang across the city. The Zelari Council had detected unusual energy signatures near the perimeter, fast-moving objects approaching the city at high velocity. Humans and Zelari alike scrambled to prepare defenses. Elias and Lyara were in the garden when the warning came. Her eyes widened slightly, the colors spinning rapidly. "They are not friendly," she said. "Then we need to protect them," Elias replied, already moving toward the command center. He realized that his training, combined with Lyara's telepathic insight, could make them an effective team. For the first time, he saw her eyes shift in a way that mirrored fear, but also resolve. Together, they coordinated with the Zelari defenses. He relayed human strategies, while she warned of ambush points and weak spots in the energy shields. The synchronization between human ingenuity and Zelari perception was seamless. The first wave of attackers arrived, sleek, black ships that moved with unnatural precision. Lasers arced through the sky, and energy shields flared against the impact. Humans and Zelari worked together, combining tactics and instincts. Elias felt a surge of pride. Despite differences, despite language barriers, they were fighting as one. Amid the chaos, he noticed Lyara struggling to maintain the mental link to the other Zelari defenders. She was focusing on multiple fronts, and her movements became slower. Without thinking, Elias moved to shield her from a stray energy blast. She reacted instantly, her telepathy warning him just in time to shift slightly, avoiding the worst of the impact. In that moment, there was no human or Zelari, only two beings relying on each other to survive. Elias realized then that the connection they had formed was not just personal, but symbolic. If humans and Zelari could learn to trust and cooperate on such a small scale, perhaps the galaxy itself could benefit. After what felt like hours but was likely only minutes, the attackers withdrew, retreating into the void. The city was damaged but not destroyed, thanks to the rapid response and collaboration. Humans and Zelari alike were exhausted, yet there was a spark of exhilaration in the air. They had survived. They had worked together. Lyara turned to Elias, her eyes still flickering with the intense colors of emotion. You saved more than just yourself," she said. "You saved us?" Elias shook his head. "No, we saved each other. That's how it works. That's how humans and maybe other species survive." She studied him, and for the first time, Elias thought he saw a hint of admiration, tempered with something deeper. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but he could feel it in the silent rhythm of their shared experience. In the aftermath, the council recognized the importance of their cooperation. Elias became not just a diplomat, but a symbol, a human who had shown courage, sincerity, and empathy in the face of danger. Lyara, too, was recognized as a bridge between worlds, capable of understanding and communicating with humans in ways few of her kind could. As night fell over the city, Elias returned to the garden, where the bioluminescent plants glowed softly under the twin moons. Lyara was there, waiting. They spoke in a quiet telepathic exchange, sharing emotions rather than words. Elias felt a sense of calm he had not known before. In this alien world, surrounded by beings who were not human, he felt connected. "Do you think we can really work together?" he asked. Lyara's eyes flickered, shades of blue and silver merging. "We already have." "That is enough for now." Elias smiled, understanding that patience was part of the Zelari way. Trust was not immediate, and understanding was built slowly, step by step. He had learned this in the span of a few days, but he knew the journey ahead would be long. He looked up at the night sky, thinking of the stars, the countless worlds, and the possibilities that lay ahead. Humans had always reached for the unknown, often recklessly, but this time they were reaching with understanding, with empathy, and with honesty. Lyara touched his hand lightly, a gesture of acknowledgement, not intimacy, yet profoundly meaningful. Elias felt a warmth that had nothing to do with physical sensation. It was the warmth of connection, of trust, of shared experience. In that moment, he realized something important. No matter how vast the galaxy, no matter how different the species, certain truths were universal. Courage, empathy, honesty, and sincerity could bridge any divide. And sometimes, it only took a single moment, a simple phrase, or an act of trust to begin that bridge. Elias and Lyara stood together in the garden, watching the city pulse with quiet energy. They had faced the first test, survived the first challenge, and in doing so had taken the first real step toward something extraordinary. Not conquest, not diplomacy, but understanding. And in the stillness of the Zelari night, with the city glowing beneath twin moons and the stars shining above, the seeds of a unique friendship, perhaps even a partnership that could change the galaxy, were planted, growing quietly in the shared silence between human and Zelari. The next morning dawned with an eerie stillness. The crystalline city of the Zelari shimmered under the soft light of twin suns, but a tension lingered in the air that humans were quick to notice. Commander Elias Mercer stood at the observation balcony, scanning the horizon with a sense of unease he could not quite explain. Despite the success of the previous day's defenses, something told him that the danger was far from over. Lyara appeared beside him, moving with the same grace that had first captured his attention. Her eyes flickered with colors that mirrored his concern, shades of green mixed with silver and a trace of violet. "The attackers will not abandon so easily," she said through the telepathic link. "They will return and they will strike with greater force." Elias nodded. "Then we need a plan. We can't just react. We need to anticipate." He had spent years preparing for battle simulations, contingency strategies, and diplomatic crises, but nothing had taught him as much as watching Lyara navigate the Zelari mind. She had a way of perceiving threats before they arrived, sensing patterns that humans could only guess at. They moved to the command center together, a vast hall of transparent panels, holographic displays, and softly glowing consoles. Zelari and human technicians worked side by side, coordinating defenses and scanning for anomalies in the energy signatures surrounding the city. "Commander," an officer called, "we've detected multiple incoming objects approaching from several vectors. They are larger than before and their formation suggests coordinated attack patterns." Elias studied the display. The objects moved with unnerving precision. "Lyara," he said, "can you read their intent?" Her eyes shifted rapidly. "They are aggressive but not mindless. They are organized and intelligent. Their goal is disruption, not negotiation." Elias exhaled slowly. "Then we fight smart, we fight together." The first wave arrived within minutes. Sleek black ships emerged from the void, their surfaces reflecting the Zelari suns like shards of glass. Energy beams cut through the sky, striking the city's shields, which flared and rippled under the assault. Humans and Zelari alike scrambled to counter the attack, deploying defensive drones, energy barriers, and tactical maneuvers. Elias moved among them, directing human units and coordinating with Lyara, who relayed telepathic guidance to the Zelari defenders. "Left flank," she warned. "They will try to bypass the outer shield." Elias redirected human forces, positioning drones and deploying countermeasures. The battle unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance, each side relying on instinct, strategy, and the coordination between two species that barely understood each other. Amid the chaos, a warning blared across the command center. One of the human units had been trapped in an energy vortex created by the attackers. Elias' instincts kicked in. Without hesitation, he grabbed a control console and began maneuvering a rescue pod, calculating trajectory, speed, and shield alignment. Lyara's telepathic guidance helped him anticipate sudden shifts in the vortex's energy flow. As the rescue pod approached the trapped unit, a blast struck the pod's side. Elias felt the impact, but he held steady, trusting both his training and Lyara's guidance. The pod latched onto the human unit just in time, pulling it free from certain destruction. "You saved them," Lyara said through the link, her eyes reflecting a deep, swirling gold. Elias shook his head. "We saved them together." He realized that every success in this battle relied not on human technology alone, nor on Zelari power alone, but on the combination of the two, unified by trust and understanding. The attackers pressed harder, using unpredictable maneuvers and decoy ships to split the defenses. Elias noticed one group attempting to penetrate the city's central core, a move that could cripple both humans and Zelari. He turned to Lyara. "We have to stop them before they reach the core. Can you coordinate the shields?" Her eyes glimmered with determination. "Yes, focus on the left flank. I will guide the central defenses." Working together, they orchestrated a counteroffensive. Elias deployed human drones in precise formations, while Lyara manipulated Zelari energy fields with astonishing speed. The attackers faltered, unable to anticipate the synchronized response. Several ships were forced to retreat, their formations disrupted by the combined strategy. For a moment, the command center fell silent, both human and Zelari personnel watching the remaining attackers regroup. Elias felt a surge of pride, not for himself, but for what had been achieved. Despite vast differences in culture, biology, and experience, humans and Zelari had learned to trust each other enough to fight as one. Then the unexpected happened. A massive energy wave struck the outer city walls, destabilizing the shield in one sector. Alarms blared, and humans and Zelari alike scrambled to respond. Elias realized that the attackers had anticipated some of their tactics. They were adaptive, intelligent, and dangerous. "Lyara," he shouted, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "We need to reinforce the shield now." Her eyes flashed violet. "I can focus on it, but you must protect me. The energy demands more than I can handle alone." Elias didn't hesitate. He moved through the chaos, positioning himself between Lyara and incoming blasts. Using human shielding technology and quick maneuvers, he absorbed the brunt of several minor attacks, allowing her to concentrate on stabilizing the core defenses. Minutes stretched like hours. Elias could feel exhaustion clawing at his muscles, but he pushed forward. He trusted Lyara, and he knew she trusted him in return. Together, they were stronger than the sum of their parts, a human and a Zelari standing united against a threat that neither could face alone. Finally, the energy wave subsided. Lyara's control of the shield stabilized, and the attackers, realizing they had been countered, began a retreat. The city was damaged but intact, and humans and Zelari alike began tending to the wounded and repairing systems. Elias leaned against a console, breathing heavily. Lyara approached him, her eyes flickering with green and gold, and for a moment they simply looked at each other. Words were unnecessary. The shared experience of surviving, of trusting, of working together spoke more than any conversation could. "You were brave," she said finally, "not just in action but in spirit." Elias shook his head. "It wasn't bravery, it was necessity and trust." "That is what made the difference." Lyara studied him, her eyes softening slightly. "Trust, humans are capable of it more than we believed, perhaps more than we expected." The human and Zelari teams began debriefing, discussing tactics, casualties, and repairs. Elias stayed by Lyara's side as she spoke with other Zelari leaders. He could see the subtle respect they had for him growing, not because he had fought well, but because he had proven that humans could be allies, capable of honesty, courage, and understanding in the face of danger. Later, when the city quieted and the stars above reflected off the repaired crystal walls, Elias and Lyara returned to the garden. The pools of liquid shimmered under twin moons, mirroring the calm after the storm. "You did not falter," Lyara said softly. "Even when the danger was greatest, you remained steady." Elias smiled faintly. "I had guidance, and someone I could trust." He glanced at her eyes, which shimmered with colors he could no longer name. "Thank you for trusting me." Lyara tilted her head, the subtle gesture almost human in its intimacy. "And I thank you for showing us that humans are capable of more than we believed. You are remarkable." Elias felt a warmth in his chest. It was not romantic, not yet, but it was a profound connection that transcended species, language, and culture. In that moment, he understood something essential. Heroism was not about power or victory, but about building trust, showing honesty, and standing together when it mattered most. The following days were filled with repairs, evaluations, and preparation for further meetings with the Zelari Council. Yet, through it all, Elias and Lyara found moments to reconnect, to share observations, and to explore the small wonders of the city. Each interaction was a lesson in patience, empathy, and understanding. One morning, they visited the crystalline canyon again. Streams of light flowed across the walls, and the soft hum of energy resonated in the air. Elias spoke of Earth's oceans and forests, of mountains that had survived for millennia, and of humans who created art, music, and stories despite the fragility of life. Lyara responded with images of her people's traditions, the way they learned to communicate through light, how they celebrated cycles of growth and change, and how they nurtured life rather than consuming it. Elias realized that their connection was growing beyond necessity. It was becoming genuine friendship, built on mutual respect, trust, and shared experiences. Yet, despite the calm, Elias remained vigilant. He knew the galaxy was vast and unpredictable, and that threats would return. But he also knew that whatever came, humans and Zelari working together could face it. And for the first time, he felt that humanity's role in the galaxy was not only to explore and conquer, but to connect, to understand, and to inspire hope in beings far different from themselves. As they stood on the canyon's edge, looking out over the shimmering expanse, Elias felt a sense of purpose he had never known. The stars above seemed closer, not as distant points of light, but as possibilities, worlds that could be reached, civilizations that could be understood, and futures that could be shaped through courage, honesty, and empathy. Lyra's eyes met his, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they had formed. It was fragile, new, and easily broken, yet stronger than either of them could have imagined. In that quiet moment, Elias realized the truth of the human spirit. No matter how small, how young, or how fragile humanity might seem in the vastness of the galaxy, it carried within it the power to touch other worlds, to inspire trust, and to change the course of events simply. By choosing honesty, empathy, and courage over fear and selfishness. And as they watched the twin moons rise over the crystalline city, Elias and Lyra knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was full of challenges, of unknown threats and wonders, but together they had discovered something more valuable than any technology, any strategy, or any weapon. They had discovered trust. They had discovered friendship. And perhaps in time, they would discover even more. The days after the battle passed in a tense rhythm. Repairs continued across the crystalline city, and both humans and Zelari worked tirelessly to restore order. Commander Elias Mercer moved through the corridors and halls with steady purpose, coordinating efforts, and ensuring that the human teams were integrated seamlessly with their Zelari counterparts. He had learned something vital in the past days. The galaxy was unpredictable, but collaboration could turn uncertainty into strength. Lyra remained at his side whenever possible. Her presence had become a quiet anchor in the storm of duties, a reminder of the bond formed through shared danger and trust. Her eyes, still shimmering with colors that reflected her emotions, now carried a softer, warmer light, a subtle acknowledgement of something deeper than professional respect. One morning, as the twin suns rose over the jagged horizon, Elias and Lyra stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The repair crews moved below, their movements precise, almost choreographed, reflecting the Zelari way of life. Humans moved among them, adapting quickly, learning from their new allies. It was a scene of cooperation that promised more than mere survival. It promised hope. "The attackers will return," Lyra said softly, her eyes flickering with green and gold. "But we are prepared. We have learned from them, and we have learned from each other." Elias nodded. "We have, and next time we will be ready together." Her gaze lingered on him, the telepathic link humming softly between their minds. "Together," she repeated, as if tasting the word. It carried weight, a promise of partnership, not just in battle but in understanding. Over the next several days, the Zelari Council convened for a historic assembly. Humans were present as observers, but their role had shifted subtly. No longer mere guests, they were participants in the shaping of Zelari policy and future strategy. Elias sat among them, feeling the significance of this moment. It was proof that mutual respect and bravery could forge bonds stronger than fear or difference. Lyra led the discussion on integration strategies between humans and Zelari, highlighting the successes of their coordinated defense. "We have observed," she said, "that humans possess qualities that we underestimated: creativity, empathy, and courage. These traits, when combined with our perception and control of energy, create a force greater than either species alone." Elias felt a surge of pride, but he kept his expression neutral. This was not about personal recognition. It was about what humans could achieve when guided by principles of honesty and trust. He glanced at Lyra, noticing the subtle flicker of admiration in her eyes. It was unspoken but clear. Their bond, forged in battle and strengthened through understanding, had changed perceptions on both sides. Later, as the assembly concluded, Elias and Lyra walked through the reconstructed gardens. The bioluminescent plants glowed softly, reflecting off the pools of water that mirrored the twin moons. There was a serenity here that contrasted sharply with the chaos they had faced. Elias felt the weight of responsibility ease slightly, replaced by a quiet optimism. You have changed things, Lyara said, her voice carrying warmth that humans might recognize as gratitude. Not just for humans, but for the Zelari as well. You have shown that cooperation is possible, even when it seemed unlikely. Elias shook his head. I didn't do this alone. We did it together, and it's not just about battle, it's about understanding, trust, connection. Her eyes flickered, and Elias sensed her contemplating the meaning of his words. Connection, it is rare, even among our own kind. He smiled faintly. Then maybe it's even more important when it crosses species. Maybe that's how we survive in the galaxy, not just by strength, but by understanding one another. They walked in silence for a while, each taking in the quiet beauty of the garden. The tension of recent days lingered faintly, but the warmth of shared experience softened it. Elias realized that this bond, forged through honesty and courage, had become a new foundation, not just for him and Lyara, but for humans and Zelari alike. In the following weeks, the city began preparations for a larger diplomatic event, a council meeting with representatives from nearby star systems. Humans were to present their own capabilities, not as conquerors, but as collaborators and allies. Elias worked tirelessly, guiding his team while consulting with Lyara on cultural sensitivities and strategies. Their partnership had become seamless, a blend of human initiative and Zelari insight. During a brief respite, Elias and Lyara returned to the canyon where they had first explored together. Streams of iridescent light flowed over crystalline walls, and the soft hum of energy resonated in the air. It was a place of reflection, a reminder of how far they had come. Do you ever wonder, Elias asked, if humans can truly be trusted across the galaxy? Lyara studied him, her eyes shifting from green to violet. Trust is earned, and humans are capable of both betrayal and loyalty, but you have shown us that humans can be worthy. That is enough for now, Elias smiled. I like to believe that most humans want to do the right thing, and when we fail, we can learn and grow. She inclined her head, a gesture that Elias had come to recognize as her way of acknowledging agreement. Then perhaps there is hope, not only for humans and Zelari, but for others as well. If more beings learn to trust and understand, conflict may not always be inevitable. It was a profound thought, one that filled Elias with both hope and responsibility. The galaxy was vast, filled with potential dangers, but also potential allies. And perhaps the future of interstellar relations depended not only on technology or power, but on empathy, honesty, and the courage to reach out. The council meeting arrived, bringing representatives from several nearby star systems. Humans were nervous, aware that they were under intense scrutiny. Elias led the delegation with calm confidence, guided by the lessons he had learned from Lyara. They presented not only Earth's technological achievements, but also humanity's capacity for cooperation, creativity, and moral courage. Lyara supported him, translating ideas through telepathy, clarifying nuances, and emphasizing the successes of joint human-Zelari operations. The other delegates listened intently, impressed by the synergy displayed between the two species. It was more than diplomacy. It was a demonstration of what could be achieved when differences were set aside in favor of shared goals. After the meeting, Elias and Lyara found themselves alone in the garden once again. The twin moons reflected off the water, casting soft light across their faces. Elias felt a sense of calm, a rare moment where he could simply be himself without the weight of responsibility pressing down. You have done well, Lyara said quietly. Not just in battle, but in showing that humans can be more than we expected. He shook his head. I did nothing alone, we did this together. He paused, looking into her eyes, the colors shifting gently as if mirroring his thoughts. And I think maybe this is only the beginning. There's so much we can learn from each other, so much we can accomplish together. Lyara's eyes softened, the hues blending into shades Elias had never seen before. Perhaps you are right. There is potential here greater than we imagined, and it began with honesty and a simple truth. Elias felt a warmth in his chest, the same feeling he had experienced when he first told her that her eyes were beautiful. It was not just admiration, it was recognition of connection, of shared understanding that transcended species. Yes, he said softly. Sometimes the smallest words can make the biggest difference. They stood together in silence, watching the city glow beneath the moons, each reflecting on how far they had come. Humans and Zelari had faced danger, forged trust, and demonstrated that even in a galaxy filled with unknowns, cooperation and empathy could change outcomes. In the days that followed, humanity's relationship with the Zelari deepened. Trade agreements, scientific collaborations, and cultural exchanges flourished. Humans learned from the Zelari way of living in harmony with nature, and the Zelari gained new perspectives on human creativity, adaptability, and courage. Elias continued to work alongside Lyra, not as a superior or subordinate, but as partners, equals who had learned to rely on each other. Their connection, built on shared experiences, trust, and respect, became a model for interstellar cooperation. One evening, as the city shimmered under the starlight, Elias and Lyra returned to the garden for one final moment of reflection. He looked into her eyes, the colors shifting softly as if acknowledging all that had transpired. "Your eyes are still beautiful," he said quietly, echoing the words that had first connected them. Lyra's eyes widened slightly, the colors swirling faster in surprise, then softened in a way that conveyed something profound. "And your words still carry truth," she replied. Elias smiled, realizing that their bond had grown beyond admiration, beyond friendship, into something rare and enduring, mutual respect, understanding, and hope. It was a connection that could inspire others, a testament to the power of humanity's greatest strengths. As the twin moons rose higher in the sky, Elias felt a sense of fulfillment. He had come to the edge of the Andromeda expanse seeking diplomacy, but he had found something far greater: the proof that humans, despite their flaws and limitations, could inspire trust, courage, and cooperation across the galaxy. And for Lyra, the experience was equally transformative. She had learned that beings so different from her own kind could possess honesty, empathy, and courage in ways that could not only be understood but respected and valued. Together they looked toward the stars, knowing that the galaxy was vast, full of challenges, but also full of possibility. And in that vastness, humans and Zelari, united by trust, courage, and understanding, would navigate the unknown, shaping a future that was not defined by conflict, but by connection. The garden was quiet, filled only with the soft hum of energy from the bioluminescent plants and the gentle ripple of water in the pools. Yet within that quiet, Elias and Lyra felt the pulse of something far larger, the heartbeat of cooperation, the promise of friendship, and the spark of hope that could light the darkness of even the most distant stars. And in that moment, both human and Zelari understood a truth that transcended species, worlds, and galaxies. When honesty, courage, and empathy guide actions, even the smallest gesture, a simple compliment, a shared trust, can change the course of history. The galaxy awaited, vast and unknowable, but no longer entirely indifferent. For the first time, humans and Zelari stood together, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, united by the bonds forged in battle, nurtured by understanding, and strengthened by the simple power of connection.